We're so lucky to have Miss Julie Perkins on the show with us today. Julie played a massive role in what has become the Specsavers organisation we know today. She is now leading Wyseminds, and in doing so helping many more organisations. Julie has kindly provided us a book download called The Wise Way, Purpose-Led Business Growth, and also another download on the founder's story, a story about how to navigate this journey as a business founder. These downloads are available at the Enterprise Excellence Podcast website under Downloads. Let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, where we aim to help create a better future. Learn from our world's experts how to improve and create enduring, high-performance, low-impact enterprises. Learn how to enhance morale, customer and purpose centricity, focus, and calmness. Learn how to create and sustain a culture of excellence at all levels of your organisation.
And I'm your host, Brad Jevons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. We are proudly brought to you in association with SA Partners, a world-leading business transformation consultancy. SA Partners are a truly purposeful company focused on helping organisations achieve sustainable improvement for themselves, others, and the planet. Welcome to episode 172 of the Enterprise Excellence Podcast. It is such a pleasure to have Julie Perkins on the show with us today. Julie is the founder of Wyseminds, an organisation focused on supporting women entrepreneurs in developing stronger businesses that are growing and delivering joy their way. Previously, Julie was a country director for Specsavers, leading the company from early days to its dramatic growth that we all know occurred today. Julie is on the show with us today to discuss the power of well-defined purpose and the impact it can have on your KPIs, as well as the work she is doing through Wyseminds with female entrepreneurs. Let's get into the episode. Julie, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, a big thank you for having me, Brad. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, same, Julie, same. Julie, your journey with Specsavers through to Wyseminds, it would have been a wild one. I've always revered Specsavers with the growth that was achieved and how lean the organisation is, and then the work you're now doing with Wyseminds. But do you mind telling us some of that backstory and what you learnt through that journey that you're now applying in Wyseminds?
Well, I think I can cover it in sort of two levels. There's the first learning was that I'm sort of generation two. So as it was being developed back in its early stage before it even came down to Australia, the opening up in the UK and Europe, I was sort of living in the house of the founders. So you pick up very important things. Of course, you don't notice it at the time, but there are key takeaways that you're doing and you're absorbing, especially about the people that gathered, the way that Mary and Doug gathered people. It was like that everybody was on that same page all of the time, excited, creating this new way of buying spectacles and now obviously hearing. And that was an exciting thing to be a part of, and the way that they gathered people. And I think that was something that I very much learned from a very young age. Surround yourself by people who know more. And, Mary and Doug were optical trained, but they never went to university or business university. So that gathering of people was very, very quick. So that was a huge thing. And of course, then I came into the Netherlands and was country director here. And it was our first country out of the mothership of the UK. So I think it was about 5 years before Australia. And the learning curve of going through there when you realize, that not everybody is there waiting for you, was dramatic. And I was so honored to be a part of that learning journey. And in that time, I learned the most important thing, which was how to lead purpose right from the start. I mean, Specsavers is built on partnership and purpose. So it was a starting point for me, but how to take that and gain incredible power in expansion of a brand was simply priceless. And I feel very honored to be a part of that.
Wow, it sounds like an amazing start and journey in your career that you were with this organization where they were very much focused on people and bringing great people around and developing people. But the organization was extremely purposeful, driven in the way that went about it. So a lot of human factors.
A lot of human factors. I mean, we I often talk with the young women that I work with today and say, don't wait till you're successful before you share the success with others, because, that's what Mary and Doug did. We've never owned a Specsavers store as Specsavers. It's always been done in joint venture partnerships. So this sharing, this collaboration, and this respect for the customer's needs was shared from day one. It wasn't, let's be successful, now share it. And that was a very, very important part, an incredible strength, because that's how you keep purpose of a company when the decisions have to be made in a way that benefits your leaders, your owners, your customer, the people who work in the company. And that collaboration was an incredible strength in the growth, not only coming into the Netherlands, UK, but also down to Australasia and now into Canada, because you can't argue with the foundation of a company. That's the way it is. It's not like, oh, we do partnership in this way, and then, oh no, you're another group. This is the way we work, and it's clear and it's there. And I think learning that from a very young age and being able to transfer that into Wyseminds is a very important conversation to have. You can't cherry pick shared partnership. You can't cherry pick it.
Yeah, wow. So it sounds like a really abundant approach that was about this shared partnership where there was strong purpose, but also the sharing and coming together as equals, would you say? Like a very egalitarian type, like.
Well, I mean, equals is equal in what? And I suppose equal in responsibility towards the customer and the community would be a very fair statement. But I think the one that enables that statement to happen is clarity in roles and responsibilities that achieves that purpose. And I think, and respect for it. Our partners are the owners of the store, the owners of the community, the owners of the customer. And they are supported to have everything they need in order to be the best they can be for their community. But everybody knows how it works. And that joint purpose is incredibly important, because you can't, and I remember in one of your other podcasts we just mentioned, you talked about the importance of measures. And if you measure too low down the customer process, then don't be surprised that this united purpose is diluted or missed. And I think that is the message that has always had the flag in it for Specsavers. And that's something that I truly promote as part of Wyseminds, is purpose-led isn't about the picture on the wall. I think everybody knows that by now. But how do you create a purpose-led to ensure you have the power of everybody working through that? I mean, if you look at some of the smaller companies I work with, you're probably talking 2 or 3 people. And now with Specsavers, you're probably talking 40, 50,000. So, but the essence is still exactly the same. The effect is still has to be united. The challenges on both sides, of course. But it's so very important to use that as your measure, for sure.
Jill, I'm really keen to explore that, because I know even prior to the show, as I was doing research, I saw the real focus on purpose and that really humanistic factor of, collaborating and involving and sharing and abundance. But you mentioned measures and really being clear on measuring purpose, and it's something you're focused on. How do you go about that? Like, how do you measure purpose and make sure that your measures are correct? Because that's more of a systematic thing, isn't it? Like choosing measures and measuring them.
Absolutely, that's right. And I think it's a challenge. And I love the conversation about you can't measure purpose. Everyone's got different purposes and all that. But what we mean in an organization is, what's that picture that you're moving towards, and how do you know if you're aligning towards it? And I'm happy to tell a failure story here to emphasize the importance of that. And when you're opening up a company in a new country, or the same with younger startups, It's very frantic. And every day matters, and you've got a lot of pressure, either from yourself or from bank investors for startup, to achieve, and obviously big success in the UK for Specsavers to achieve. And I remember when we were starting up and we had, I'd say 30 to 40 stores here in the Netherlands, now we've got about 160. We used to set record weeks as a measure. Now, that got a lot of excitement. It got lots of energy going forward and stuff like this. But what happens when you don't have a record week? What happens then? Oh, it's like, I'm using a very simple example to show how you can be caught up in what is important to many people around you. But it's not actually what's going to give you the results that you need. So, of course, finance is important when you are doing a startup. You can't just say, we're going to ignore money for 5 years, thank you. But the positioning of discussion and celebration sits with the right people. But for the whole organization, it was very important we had something that brought us together. And that's when we decided to do a very simple measure with purpose. And with us at Specsavers here in the Netherlands at the beginning, we were the likelihood of someone returning to us in 2 years, because that involved everybody. It didn't matter, it didn't define how you did your role, it didn't give you a job description, but everybody understood their contribution and, of course, what their contribution was towards the goals. And that year, we moved from a position of chugging growth into a position of able to push for market leadership. I didn't say we were a market leader, but we were in a good running. And that's because we had 1,200 people focusing their power, their space. They had the space to be the best they could be. And that's something I've translated into Wyseminds. And can you measure purpose? Well, I think I mentioned right at the beginning that myself, a behavioral psychologist and a financial consultant, spent our COVID lockdown moments in our own individual attics saying, okay, let's challenge it. Let's say you can measure purpose. Now, of course, the finance guy loves this. The behavioral is like, oh my gosh. And me, having lived the fact, I know it matters. And the three of us came up with an equation and why that equation works. And it's not that we lead our entrepreneurs with it, but we use it as that sort of measuring stuff to say, how aligned are you to purpose? Because the more aligned you're going to be in those early stages, those middle stages, those late stages, it doesn't matter. The greater the power in your most expensive assets, like stakeholders, purpose, whether it's your team, stakeholders, suppliers, alliances, the more they're going to be able to bring you. And, as much as you want to all sit there and hold hands, it's not possible in a complex ecosystem of today. So you need something that's going to unite you. And a measure does help with that, for sure.
Julie, I love that example with Specsavers there, that your purpose is very much customer centric and also the people of the organization and the joint venture partners. And then you've got this measure you came up with that unites everyone around, was it the ratio of customers that return within 2 years or the number but either way, it brings it all together, doesn't it? Because the more customers that are coming back, it shows that we've lived our purpose, but it also is going to deliver all the other outcomes you want on profitability and growth and everything else that comes with it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. When you ask somebody, and we would ask our customers, and so what is the likelihood of you coming back? Because to come back and to say you're going to come back in a 2-year period, you've got to have a little wow factor. And that was the beautiful thing. It can't just be delivering service. That's a given. At Specsavers, good service, good eye, good hair care. It was that. Have you given that customer something so special that they're going to remember you in 2 years' time? And in a busy world, I must admit, it's tough. So you had to, obviously within the realms of, but did you make it memorable? Did you make them feel incredible in some way that in 2 years' time they go, Oh my gosh, yeah. Marika was super with me. Yeah, I remember. That's a big task, but it's achievable because in today's world, and I know it's digital world, the human factor is still important. Or that notice, or the fact there was a follow-up after the customer left, or doesn't matter if it's human or digital so much, but there was something to go that extra mile.
Yeah. And I love the concept too, Julie, because it's so easy at the top line of an organization to just focus on sales growth or profit. It's just, they're easy measures, you know them instantly, it's easily done. Whereas, thinking about purpose, it takes a bit more thought, but it can be achieved. Like the Specsavers example, it's such a good one.
Especially because you've got your board member actually in the store. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Every day.
That's cool.
You have a director in the store every day.
Yeah, that's great. Leading from the front.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's incredible learning. And, even though, when we have the women entrepreneurs that I work with now with Wyseminds, I think we can get carried away with what success is nowadays, and everyone's looking for global solutions, et cetera, which actually can be very overwhelming for people. So they kind of tend to avoid what growth means to them because they think, it's got to evolve into a headline of, I made 76 million overnight, opened up my eyes, and, Bob's your uncle. So moving away from that and trying to encourage growth through a more shared ecosystem is a very important way for doing growth with confidence nowadays. And that requires clarity, because you don't want to be in an ecosystem and not know who you are. You want to know who you are, have that beautiful ability to learn, to share, but keep who you are.
Yeah.
Evolve the processes, but keep who you are and what you believe. And I think that's why that work, my experience of 30 years with Specsavers and the beautiful journey I had, translates so perfectly in supporting women entrepreneurs today, especially because it's like biased, this beautiful collaboration that people want to bring people with them is a very natural way of working for young people. And but you don't want to just be a whole gang of people sitting in a common room, and I'm not saying that's how they're doing it, but they say, well, I don't really want to tell people what to do. And I go, well, that's, it's not leadership so much. And by putting purpose in the middle and understanding why that purpose belongs to them, enables them to be the young leaders that we need today, as far as I believe.
And Julie, I'm assuming here, but does then having those right measures that are purpose aligned help to bring that even greater focus and, I guess, constant energy on it, because you know that you're progressing or you're tracking forward based on what those measures are telling you? Is that correct?
Yeah.
What else would you add?
It's more than correct. Yeah, I mean, it's such a, because you can't redefine other people's measures. That's something that they need to do. We have just the Powerball, which measures through 16 questions how aligned you are to your purpose. So it looks at 4 key growth areas: purpose, how people are living it; customer, are you doing what's right for the customer? Does it have that original influence on them? The way that you work, and the people and how connected they are to the purpose. And just those 4 areas, it gives them a percentage which they can check with their team on a regular basis. Oh, I'm 80% aligned, or what it is. Okay, that's the basic foundation. But the influence that has that constant measure of how aligned we are to purpose, we do nickname it the blame ball, because when something goes wrong, we always try and fix a problem and not actually solve it. And we fix it by going, what we immediately see, oh, the customer hasn't had their product. Okay, I'm going to give the customer the product. But what the Powerball enables them to do is to solve, where is that issue? It's never one thing. And it's normally a misalignment of, why has the customer not got his product the way that we work? Or, how is that supplier aligned to how we work? And it's beautiful for the ecosystems of of today's business model, because it's a non-confrontational one. It's not I did, you did. It's I would say it's not as juvenile as this, but let's ask the Powerball where the problem is. And it doesn't sort of say it's because of Fred, but what it does is it opens up a potential sort of a conversation on a higher level so that you solve the problem for good.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing of having a value of purpose. So we say, yep, you can have that value of purpose. Is your vision coming to life? But your everyday value is the alignment of your 4 key growth drivers. And we keep it super simple because, well, you'll know more than ever. If you've ever seen a startup founder, and you can get 5 minutes with them, it's literally a golden nugget. So it's got to be super simple.
Yeah, no, I totally vouch for that. And Julie, I really love the discussion too, and hearing the stories of what Specsavers achieved with it and what you are doing now with female entrepreneurs. Because I always think about, I had Yves Moriox on the podcast, and he's famous around productivity, but he often talks that things fail at the baton change, one team handing to another team and that handover. And I think with purpose, when you don't have a common purpose and common aligned measures between teams, it's sort of like you can get this infighting within the fort. You could imagine this fort, but
oh yeah,
if they have a common purpose outside of the fort or a common thing to work towards, all that infighting goes away, and it just becomes about, well, okay, how do we move forward towards that purpose and the measures that we want to achieve? It's such a simple but powerful concept you're pulling together.
Well, I mean, its simplicity is key, because the last thing people need is another report. And it's just that whole thing going, okay, there's a problem here. Stop, think, where in the Powerball is it? You don't need to get the flip chart out. Just go, okay, where are we deflated at the moment? Where is it just not powering through? Just becomes part of the conversation. And it's a different story from Specsavers, but when I was working with a few charitable organizations, now everybody, gets involved with charities. They've got a super passion. They've often got history and of why they feel passionate. So you've got amazing amounts of individual purpose in a room. And that can be really challenging to lead towards a common goal of a charity. We've all got a different interpretation of a charity depending on how we're arriving there. And we found that just by putting the Powerball there, it respected people's personal journeys, but they had something to kind of focus on outside. It sort of shifted it a lot more. And that's very similar to very fast pacing startups right at the beginning. You need something just in the room to just give a quick sense check. And it can't be figures. It can't be about you personally, because, you've got to work closely with those people for this sort of year. So the Powerball is such a beautiful discussion corner, I suppose. It unifies, for sure.
Oh, thanks, Julie. And so, Julie, at the heart of all that is the purpose. Do you mind describing for us what a well-defined purpose is? How do you go about getting a well-defined purpose and then associating the right measures to it?
Absolutely. Well, this is, I can talk from the foundation of where purpose comes in. And of course, sort of having the founders as such a part of my life, I can really truly understand how that purpose is defined by the founder. And, going back to these waves that you were talking about, the sort of the handover, the baton, it's a very important part of the story of how you put together the purpose, because, I always liken it to Mount Everest, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 camps and then the summit. And what happens is founders get really rapidly up to camp 4, and it's terrible, and you're literally borrowing money, bootstrapping or whatever, and you get to camp 4 and you try to summit with the same weight as you've had, to get you up to 1, 2, and 3. and you need different things. And the number one different thing is the founder needs to extract themselves from the business. And they don't. They try and, say, all right, we've got the processes, we've got this, come on, let's go. And you're too heavy to climb. So what's very important in defining a purpose is taking the founder back to the beginning and understanding what their personal purpose is and how they want to translate that into the purpose of the organization and separate it. And that's the process of making a very good purpose, because you're extracting the founder out. And Mary and Doug did that very well because they took on joint ventures. They had to make it not about them very early on. And they translated, if you ever listen to some of Mary's podcasts and her story of, her upbringing and what she believes, never take more from the world than what you give, that everybody should have value from the eye care. You can see how it now translates into the model of today. Growth is a series of waves. I can't even begin to count how many waves Specsavers has had. But you have to reposition yourself, keep making yourself redundant so that you don't get caught up in the purpose of your company. There needs to be space, otherwise no one will be able to join. People follow great ideas, they don't follow people. I know that sounds, people like to be inspired by people, but, I think history tells us that following people might not be such a great idea. It's the ideas that are important and how you can contribute towards making something truly different and amazing happen. And that's the beauty of defining a really good purpose. It has the essence of you, but it's not you. And my course has a whole module on it. How do you translate yourself into your company without being your company? Founder's Trap. So we love it.
Yeah. I think I've seen, I guess, in my own life a lot where founders that stay in the business and keep dragging along, they end up becoming a bottleneck. It's like the main constraint of the company is actually that founder, isn't it? Whereas, like you said, if they can extract themselves but have that essence of purpose and the aligned measures to that, and I guess the vision and strategy, off it goes. It can just evolve.
Yeah.
Julie,
I make myself redundant on a 6-monthly basis, just to kind of go, back, reposition, because I learned the hard way. I was that person you've just described right back in the day. I think a lot of young people are, because you want to make things happen and you're passionate, but you don't go back down that ever to say, how does that passion translate into the company so I can attract the best people to help me summit?
Yeah, because the alternative is everyone else is back down at camp one, and they're not really motivated, and they're looking at you run off up the mountain going, that person's pretty crazy.
We're phoning them. Can you bring out supplies, please? That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, you're directing them what to do and hoping they do it. Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? That whole look in the mirror type thing and the leadership behavior that plays such a big part in any enterprise achieving excellence. Hey, Julie, with what you're doing now, you're really focused on female entrepreneurs through Wyseminds and taking this learning you've had throughout your career and the courses you've built now and the education you've got to really help. What led you down this path of focusing on female entrepreneurs?
Well, I mean, the original sort of stories was when I kept hearing women entrepreneurs' businesses, and they said, it didn't continue. It didn't continue. And when I decided to open Wyseminds and, having listened to these stories, I just thought, if you had found somebody, any coach or business guide, 2 months earlier, you'd be living a very different story, because their reason for failure, they took so personally. And it wasn't about them at all. It was just the natural pattern of how companies grow. It's a series of growth, a series of phases, and you've got to adjust yourself on each phase. And basically, they had gone into early maturity because, as you said, they didn't move on. Their company was trying to tell them something, and they were sinking between two waves. And I just thought, oh, gosh, if you could have just had a quick conversation with me 2 months ago, I could have said, this is not your fault at all. This is a natural pattern. Let me try and extract you and put you back in. Because the idea was great. I just thought, what a waste of a great idea. And I think this journey with women entrepreneurs, and as my dad says, don't put half the world in a box. So I'm trying to prevent myself from doing that. But the essence of it, this holding on, collaboration, and building great ideas, I think is a way that we like to do things. But we have to, in order to be able to jump over the crevasse or to move on into that next phase, because if we've got a great idea, it's going to grow around you. So it's not going to stop growing just because you're going to get more customers you can't service. So we have to understand, how can we support women entrepreneurs to take that step over the crevasse in a way that they are happy with? And I know there's a lot of conversations about funding and, is that a reason why there's not so many women entrepreneurs around? I think there are other aspects as well. And I'd like to play my role in ensuring that when they're knocking on that founder's door, or the incubator door, if that's the way they wish to go, they're knocking on it loudly and clearly, and they've got absolutely every single tool that to be that confidence and to have taken over that first crevasse. Because is it a fear of failure or is it a fear of success? And the more and more I work with women, I think it's the latter. That fear of success, what happens if it becomes so big that I haven't got time for family, for friends, for the things I love to do? And I think we place ourselves in the middle, but I find that when we extract the founder, they're looking at the bigger picture of vision. It's a much more comfortable way of saying, yes, I want to grow. And this is how I want to grow. But when you're in it, you kind of think, how can I do more when I'm working 80 hours a week? It's a very, very important part. And the whole initial level of the way we work with people is to extract them out. And it's priceless. I always joke with an entrepreneur. She goes, I said, what do you think is the main gain of what? She said, finding out that I was the problem, but not really the problem. She said, but don't put that in an advert, because I would never would have replied to it. It's just, I never would have done it. She said, but it was when I realized there was an easier way of doing it, and I could have it all. She said, that was the priceless moment. And she's now fully funded. She's put in a second partner, but she couldn't have done that from the position she was in. And, that's what inspires me, is being able to keep her great idea alive.
Yeah. So, Jill, I'm guessing with being clear on the purpose and the measures that align to that purpose is one key element to be able to extract yourself, remove the person and get that focus on that purpose and those goals. But what are some other key elements to be able to actually extract yourself from that entrepreneurial overburdened position and get moving forward?
It's a really super question, because it's never one thing, right? It's a starting point and you kind of go, okay, I've got purpose, now what? And from my failure, which I think was the greatest failure in my career that I used to create the way of working now, was, why did I not let go? Because I found myself in the founder's trap. Why did I not let go? Because it's only from asking that question will we actually truly understand what stops us. Because I like to consider myself as fairly clever, fairly aware of myself. But why did it take me 3 years and sort of sitting in the garden at 3 a.m. in the morning going, oh my gosh, what more can I do? To realize how much fundamentally I wasn't letting go. And I think it comes from the word delegate, because the answer isn't delegate. And everyone goes, oh, the answer's not delegate. I said, no, the initial answer is understanding the behavior of why I didn't let go. And that was through, trust, the panic of not succeeding, or what happens if I don't give targets? I'm working hard, I can't give more to other people. It wasn't delegate. There was a behavioral change that needed to happen. I had a great team. I adored my team. I'm still in contact with them now. But it wasn't delegation. I'm going to delegate more. You can't. You've got this ugly baby that you've only loved, and you're the only one who loves it, trust me, at the beginning, and you've got people maybe slightly pitying you, and then you're growing it, and then people start to love it. But it's like, okay, you have to be able to hand over this precious thing to people that you trust. And that's where purpose and values come back in, is connecting people with purpose and values and being confident about that understanding helps people to trust, to hand over in the right way, which is, how can you have the space to be the best that you can be? And, you know, we go into the detail of value-based recruitment. And I learned that from my father. And right in the early stages of growing up Specsavers, he went into suppliers, you know, they were right at the beginning, they were beginning to get a bit of traction. And he would go into suppliers and he would obviously meet with the person that he was going into, but he would always say, oh, before I go, can I meet your successor? Of course, he didn't say it as blunt as that, because he wanted to know that that person was in it for the long term, and like he was. And that alignment of suppliers and team is critical in an ecosystem thing. It's you assuming that if somebody's making contact lenses, they can make contact lenses, and the innovation right at the beginning, you want to know, are you still going to be here tomorrow when I'm growing, or are you going to sell on to someone that I don't necessarily want to work with? And I think that value-based recruitment, establishing purpose and values and the behaviors that we have to have, is priceless. And people wait till they're successful to do it. Do it day one. You know, how do you want to work? How do people contribute? Who are you looking for? Not skills, but the sort of style of people. And if you ever go into some of these little incubator works I work with, it's such a buzz if you go through there, because values are just on fire. It's great.
Yeah, it's such an important aspect, isn't it, Julie? But you know, you see so many organizations where they define purpose and define values and then put them on the wall, and that's sort of the end of it, you know, and it's such
That's
a
right.
lost opportunity, isn't it? Without
That's without
bringing
a
it to
doubt.
life.
I mean, putting it in the essence, putting it in the foundation of who you are. You know, how can we make this vision, this purpose come on? How can we share the purpose that we can't go, all right, oh, we haven't mentioned it. It's there in the everyday way that we speak, we live, we work, partnership of some level. And there's just so many options nowadays, but sharing collaborative success, I think, is essential, especially in sustainability companies where I tend to hang out more.
Yeah, it's so important. No, I love what you're doing, and you're focused there on that. In a way, you're helping an entrepreneur really define their way. Who are they? What are they about? What are their values? What are we about? And then, like you said, extract the person, but then have that essence and that purpose and those values to then be able to bring into everything that happens going forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's just such an important lesson, not only for founders, but also for young leaders. You know, how do you become the leader you want to be, which is often a question I get asked. And I look back on my life and I think I was passionate. I wore that as a badge, but I don't think I used to mistake it for leadership. I just thought, you know, for somebody who was, you know, slightly just wanted to get on with the work, I was quite overwhelming. You know, my PR director used to say, I used to dread when sometimes you walked in a room because I'd have to do a PR message for NASA. You know, sometimes it's, you know, in terms of, how do you translate who you are into the leader you want to be? And before you start reading all the leadership books, find out who you are first, and then how you translate it into the leadership books. And
Yeah,
so it's a very important thing.
because I guess, Julie, you know, at the core of all of us, we have purpose, and at the core of all of us, we have core values. You know, they're there in all of us, and it's just, I guess, there's
Absolutely.
nature and nurture and everything that goes with it that develops that. But that's who we are, and it's there to
It's
be
my
extracted.
favorite part of the program. Yeah, my favorite part. They go, but I've got loads of values. And I kind of go, yeah, but the way you take decisions in life will be from the top hierarchical of four, guaranteed.
Yeah, yeah. What are those core ones? That keyword core. Yeah, that's
Yes.
the importance. Julie, it's been an amazing conversation, and I really loved hearing about your journey and what you've learned through that journey, and you're now helping female entrepreneurs with, which is truly wonderful. What would be your enterprise excellence 2-minute tip to a female entrepreneur on this topic?
Growth begins with you. Find out who you are first, without a doubt, your purpose and your values. And I believe it's like the 80-20 rule. Once you do that, 80% of your challenges, whatever they'll be, whether it be frustrations or just chugging, or you just asking yourself, do I still love my business? 80% will be solved by doing that one thing. Who am I? And why have I taken the choice to do what I do? Leave the space, and that space is your freedom and the freedom for others to be able to be the best they can be as well.
Yeah, that's an awesome tip. That's an awesome tip. Thank you, Julie. Julie, what's been a recent insight for you? Like, I can hear throughout your whole career, you've really reflected, you've learned. What's been a recent reflection and learning that you've had?
Well, I think for learning, I have to sort of go on the power of knowing yourself. And I started looking into that. If it has so much effect on young entrepreneurs that are beginning their businesses, what effect would it have on younger people just going out into the world? And I started working again with the same team on developing that same program for young people. Who am I? Who do I need to gather in my life to live the life I want to live? And am I aligned with where I'm going, etc., but in a way that they can be internally motivated? And I think that's been the greatest learning for me, that power of internal motivation and how you can actually use that for success in growing business. And it sort of it inspired me a lot to do more sort of learning for myself on NLP and hypnosis, and not because I'm going to use that, but because it's so interesting to look at the power of the mind and internally who we are and how much it affects the outcome of what we do.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's such a key topic, isn't it? It's such a, well, it's
Yeah.
at the core of it, isn't it? What goes on
Yeah.
up there in our mind is at the core of it all.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Julie, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and everything you have done and you'll continue to do for the future. How can people reach out to you if they want to collaborate, have a conversation, learn some more?
Well, we've got wyseminds.com and a blog, and Wise is with a Y because a young person said if I spelt it with an I, it made me sound old. So I changed it to a Y, so it's wyseminds.com. And you can find everything there. There's quite a lot of free stuff there. I wrote a founder's story, which is an amusing, anecdotal, sort of cartoon-like about some of the challenges I've talked about today. And I always like to do it pictorially because it's a non-confronting way of talking about some key issues that all founders go through. It's not your fault. And reading this will go, do you know, I'm glad I'm not on my own. I'm glad it's not me, because it's the normal pattern of business growth. So I can do something about it with not going into early maturity. So I think there's a lot of free stuff. So give it a good read. And then reach out to us. There's loads of ways. Virtual coffee, if you want to have a chat. I'm quite good at MRIing businesses, but I just enjoy it. It's like a brilliant hobby of mine. So give us a call.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thanks for all you have done and continue to do to help us create a better future. Really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure talking today, Brad. A great way to start my day. Thank you.
Cheers, Julie. Bye for now.
Bye.
What a great episode. Remember, you can visit our website, enterpriseexcellencepodcast.com/downloads to get hold of the Wise Way book and Founder's Story Julie has kindly provided us. Please like, subscribe and share this podcast to help others gain insights and create a better future. There were two key takeaways for me from this episode. Firstly, measuring purpose. Defining a purpose well, starting with the founder, and then defining the right measures, the track that aligns everyone to this purpose. Julie's story about Specsavers and the shift to return customer visits after the 2-year period was such an insightful one for me. You know, that simple shift in measure truly aligned to everyone, but also truly aligned to the purpose of Specsavers. It was such a great example. The second key takeaway from me was understanding your core values, really defining your culture and capturing it, and then bringing it to life through every aspect of the organisation, together with your purpose, right from employee selection through onboarding, through employee journey and development, through celebration and recognition, everything within the organisation. To me, these are two extremely important concepts that Julie described very well. Thanks again for your time and knowledge, Julie. Thanks for everything you have done and will continue to do to help us create a better future. Bye for now.